Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today in War Thunder it's time to have a look at another news announcement that has come out today. Now this is from Stoner, who if you know is a community manager for War Thunder, is normally the guy who makes the posts about stuff like economy changes or things coming to the game in the future. And a while back, before update 1.87 was released, it was known that there was going to be a bunch of economy changes after update 1.87. Now it seems like we are now looking at those planned economy changes. They're going to be coming on the 23rd of April of 2019, so in about 2 to 3 weeks time, and across the board there seems to be massive reductions when it comes to RP, when it comes to SL costs, when it comes to pretty much everything. The only thing that isn't really discussed is repair costs, and I believe they were changed not too long ago. Something that also was talked about on a Russian stream with BVVD was that they were going to make, or they were going to try at least, to make more economy changes per year than they have done in the last few years. And hopefully this and the other repair cost changes that we had, before, kind of show that there is going to be more changes to the general economy. So let's go through the general vehicles that are getting changed and also the overall ideas on what's going on. So the economy changes that they're doing is a revision of the costs in RP for research for the vehicles and modules of aircraft of ranks 4 to 5, ground vehicles of rank 5 to 6, and helicopters of rank 5. They're also doing a revision of the costs in SL for purchase of the vehicle and modules of aircraft of ranks 4 to 5, ground vehicles of rank 5 to 6, and helicopters of rank 5. Then once again, a revision of the cost for crews, including expert qualification, increase of the reward multipliers for RP of aircraft of rank 5 and 6, ground vehicles rank 5 and 6, and also helicopters of rank 5, and the revision of the repair costs for the aircraft of ranks 4 and 5. So you can see there are sweeping changes here when it comes to pretty much every part of the economy, and they are all positive from the community point of view. We'll get into them in a little bit. One of the things that isn't shown in the vehicle list is the module changes when it comes to costs. My guess is they're going to be reduced, or at least in part they're going to be reduced, because everything else is getting reduced. It's kind of insane. Something that I personally brought up quite a lot when creating spreadsheets on the topic is back in the day in 2017 when we had these sweeping economy changes before, we were in a much better position than we are today when it comes to the amount of vehicles that are, well, crazy prices. And also the other thing is there are steps, unfortunately, to the RP system where you go from 120,000 to 210,000 to 380,000. That gap was absolutely massive, and it seems like they're addressing this by reducing not just that gap, but also the gap between 120,000 and 210,000. On top of this as well, something that has to also be announced, the changes that we're going through today, they in the current table, these are only the major planned changes. So there will be other changes as well that we can't see from this table, and we'll have to have a look at, later on. So what is interesting as well is there's a hell of a lot going on in War Thunder, but not yet. What do I mean by this? So we've just come off what seems like the Sea Voyage event plus update 1.87. We've just had news that we're getting some form of engineering Build-A-Bear event. We've also got the squadron vehicles coming at some point, and now the economy changes. Then there's the talks about World War II Chronicles, that if that's coming back this year, it should be in the next few weeks. This is a crazy time in War Thunder. There's a hell of a lot going on, and it's kind of hard to cover it all. And this is on top of all the changelogs, on top of, the April Fool's event that we have going on right now. It is amazing. The amount of stuff that is actually going on. And I think I can't think of a time in War Thunder's history where there is so much going on. We've also got the tournament stuff going on, of course, the esports side of things. And slowly but surely, over the years, Gaijin is ramping up when it comes to their events, when it comes to stuff going on, when it comes to dailies and, all of this stuff. And a lot of people say to me, when was the best time to get into War Thunder? Well, either when we had the leveling system, the 20 level system, so you could get to high tier really quickly, or now. Because there is so much stuff to offer now, it only gets better and better and better. And I think a lot of people see that in a negative light because they see it as, there's way too much stuff for me to conquer. And I think there's definitely an argument there because it's the argument, should an individual be able to, be able to enjoy all aspects of War Thunder, or should said individual only be able to focus on some things? There's definitely discussion and debate to be had there, but the main thing is, there is so much to offer right now in War Thunder. It would be insane as an individual who is interested in either military history or gaming in general not to get involved in this game. Because now, with the planned economy changes, it is easier than ever to be able to grind through a tree and play the top tier vehicles. So let's have a look at the planned economy changes that we see. So obviously, it's affecting aircraft, ground vehicles, and helicopters. There is no effect on naval right now, which is understandable. If you look at the top tier naval stuff, it's a hell of a lot cheaper than the aircraft and ground vehicles. The only thing about the naval stuff is, of course, there are some repair costs, which are a little bit whack, we'll say, but my guess is that that will be changed pretty soon, or at least in the next update, once they have enough data on it, it'll get changed. So the first thing to understand is that there are a ton of vehicles which get research cost reductions. There are very few which get an increase. The only one so far that I have personally found in the aircraft is the A36, and it's going up by 1,300. And when you compare that to other machines, such as the F-86A5 and the F-86F25, which are going down by 101,000 and 210,000 RP respectively, plus they're cutting the cost of them in half when it comes to Silver Lions, plus they're cutting the training crew in half, and also the expert qualification in half. Stuff is... How insane is that? They're literally cutting this thing, the F-25, in pretty much half when it comes to all of its costs across the board. So crew training, purchase cost, research cost, crew cost. The only thing we don't know about is repair cost. And something else, context that does matter here when it comes to these vehicles, is if we scroll across, you can also see that these vehicles, some of them have RP multiplier changes, but they're all positive. So what I mean by this is no vehicle that I've found, apart from these two. What are these two? Let's have a look. The DO 217 J1 and J2. Okay. Well, I should say the vast majority of the RP modifiers have either stayed the same or they have slightly increased. So this means per battle, you should be making more RP for your vehicles and also have to grind out less RP for those vehicles as well. Now, as I said, this doesn't include the modification costs. Something that I personally have a gripe with is the difference between a stock vehicle and a fully upgraded vehicle, and I hope that gets lessened. And it seems like with these changes, which you can see are all incredibly positive for the community who wants to be able to play more vehicles, then, the modifications, I can't see them going up. It wouldn't make any sense for them to go up. So apart from the A36, you can see across the board in rank 4 and 5, and also other ranks when it comes to ground forces and helicopters, massive reductions. The only ones which aren't getting reduced, it seems like, are the completely top tier vehicles, so the CL-13A and the CL-13B, as you can see here, and then of course stuff like the MiG-19S, the MiG-19C, as it's called here, because I think it's a Russian translation. you can see that that's not getting, changed. So the tippy top vehicles are still sitting at 380, 390, 400,000, but the majority of vehicles now are under 100,000 to be able to research, which is, let's say you're running premium and you're not using a premium vehicle, but you're an average to better player, that's 10 to 15 games in aircraft we're talking about here. So that's not a lot. It really isn't. And all of this is just making it so much easier for the individual to get to higher tiers, which is obviously good. You get to experience more of the game at an easier way. So for those people who are in rank 3 or rank 4 or want to try new nations now, everything is just easier for you to do. Everything at this point in time, when it comes to War Thunder, will be easier for you to do to, get to those high tiers and play the vehicles that you personally want to play. Even if the vehicle itself is only a rank 4 or a rank 3, it's still easier than before. Now remember, these come into effect on the 23rd of April, or at least that is the planned update date. What does this mean for the individual who wants to min-max or who is playing War Thunder right now? That means if you are close to researching a vehicle and you're okay with waiting, or if you have some vehicles that you personally, you don't have the SL for, wait until after that point and you will be able to research them, or you will personally be able to own them and get the silver lions for them you'll need a lot less silver lions to be able to purchase them after that point instead of if you buy them before. Now, for me, it's not too much of an issue because, over the years I've been able to accrue a decent amount of silver lions. But as many individuals have pointed out to me, silver lions have been hard to come by, especially when it comes to top tier. Well, you should be incredibly happy with these changes as well. Look at some of these changes. So the R2Y2s going down by 100,000 on the last one. Once again, now, for the Japanese, there is only 3 vehicles that I can see which are over 100,000 in research. That's insane. That's amazing if you are a person who wants to experience every part of War Thunder. Italy, there is literally only 1 vehicle now that is over 100,000 in research points. And there is only 1 vehicle which is over 1 million when it comes to silver lions. That's crazy. Compared to what I am used to, compared to the War Thunder that I know, this is a foreign entity when it comes to these economy changes. And you can't say these are bad. There is no negative here at the moment that we can see. A negative that could be possible is if the modification prices go through the roof or the RP gains go down. But from the modifiers that we see here, it seems like they're either staying the same or going up. Now, the ground forces ones are where the massive, huge changes are also coming in. The aircraft ones are great, and so are the ground forces ones. The ground forces, unfortunately, as you can see from this list, just from America, we had a ton of vehicles which fit the bill of 380 to 390,000, and the gap between the 210s and the 380,000s was great. We have a vehicle here, the T95E1. It's going down by 200,000. And so are all of these vehicles here, 2 AA machines and an M60A2. Something that I personally talked about a while ago, which I'm very glad to see, is that it seems like specific vehicles that aren't being used as much as others are getting reduced by more than some other ones to try and promote use of them. You can see that now there is a lot more fluctuation in the actual RP costs of vehicles because of this fact. And this means that we don't just have a standardized, as you can see, 210,000 to 380. Now we have 180, 160, 250, 390. There's at least a little bit less of a range between vehicles now, and it also means that the individual has a choice on what to go for instead of always going for that top tier MBT or, the top tier amazing SPAA. Playing the meta vehicles, you now have much more of a reason to be able to grind out the other stuff, because it's very hard to sell the Bradley, or it's very hard to sell the Sheridan when they're the same price, or very much the same price, as the M1 Abrams, or the M1A1 Abrams. The only one out of the Americans which hasn't gone down is the M1A1. What is interesting as well is, as you can see, the M901 is listed here. Hopefully this means the squadron vehicles will be here soon. I am guessing in the next week or so we will definitely see the announcements for them coming out. But if this thing is 300,000, and then stuff like the MBT-70 is 250, I mean, if this is how much RP you have to grind in order to get the M901, generally I think that's okay. It also matters how the modifiers work, right, for the squadron activity stuff, so we'll have to see how it goes. I'm not even talking about stuff like crew training cost or expert qualifications, but I will do when it comes to ground vehicles, because this is one of the main differences. So if you look at crew training expert qualifications for planes, it's generally negative. Like sorry, not negative. The difference is negative, meaning that your new price is a lot lower than the old price that it used to be. So getting an expert qualification for an aircraft is much easier to do now. For ground vehicles, it's slightly different. As you can see, the majority of them have actually No, they haven't. They just forgot to put the negative. Never mind. The ground vehicles have decreased as well. They just don't have a negative sign on them. So the difference is once again all negative, meaning that it is easier once again to get expert qualifications. Lovely stuff. So across the board, once again, for ground vehicles as well, it's easier. The Rakuten Jagdpanzers have gone down a hell of a lot of research as well. 40,000 is still a decent chunk, that's pretty much 5 or 6 good games. Then we have stuff like the KPZ going down by 140,000. The A1A1 going down by 200,000. And I know a lot of people who have ground out these vehicles are going to feel cheated by the fact that these are reducing right now. See it in this way. You've been able to experience a lot of these vehicles first before other people, and also this will mean that you'll have more people at these top tiers to play against, to be able to, have fun and enjoy the game, which is something that hopefully as a community we all want, because if there's nobody else and there's just you at the top tier, well, guess what? You're not going to be able to play against anyone. Another thing to also talk about is the modifiers for RP have actually been increased more. The multipliers, I should say, have been increased more for ground forces than they have for aircraft. So you should be making more RP per vehicle in ground now compared to, well, I shouldn't say that, but more RP in general in your ground vehicles and more than the change that has come to aircraft. So overall, these are all great. There's no negative here. I want to find the individual who finds the negative here and basically have a chat with them and understand, maybe, I mean, the only arguments against these changes are you don't want people being able to get to top tier as quickly, so therefore the skill level will go down. Well, that argument died when they started adding in the XM1 stuff, and personally, I'm very much against these 8790, premium vehicles. I think they're generally bad for the game. I also think, the new jets that we just got, the premium ones, are also bad for the game. But if we take that as a standard, then these changes are incredibly good for the average player who doesn't have them. And a lot of people, I've talked to who don't have premium accounts or who are struggling to research at the top tiers, well, here's your chance. Here's your chance to jump in, to have fun, and to play other nations. Because another thing, a lot of people I've talked to only main like 1 or 2 nations. That's fine. You can do that. But for me, I think it's much better across the board to try and play all parts of each nation, or at least try to, and experience War Thunder as a whole if you're able to. If you're not, then, that's completely understandable. But I think it's much better just to, across the board, try different things. And even the helicopters. So some of the helicopters got changed, the lower tier ones. I think this is a great idea. And the reason is because I've seen a lot of people who are not really struggling to get into helicopters. They just find it very odd that even the secondary helicopters, such as the Huey 1B, is the same price or the similar price to the AH-1Z. Like, it's very much the Sheridan and the M1 Abrams argument once again. Why would I get a Sheridan when I can get an M1A1? Why would I want to get a Huey when it's the same price as the AH-1Z? So these prices, in my opinion, make a lot more sense when it comes to the general progression of the game in helicopters, and also the RP multipliers are going up once again, so you'll be able to make more RP, per helicopter. The other thing I also want to mention is just as a general thing, this Google Doc and the way that it is spread out, much better than previous ones, just from an understanding point of view and seeing what is going on. I think it may be better just in the future, maybe to have like a color slider on these changes, so it's easier for individuals to see which ones are like a larger change compared to the other ones. But just from, it's much better than the old one, which was just like 3 lines and it was very hard to read. But all of these are amazing. All of these changes are wonderful. There is not really a negative change here, unless you want less people to be a top tier. So we're getting massive reductions in RP, massive reductions in costs, most of them getting split by 50% when it comes to the Silver Lion cost. We have massive reductions to crew train costs, not as big as the other ones, but it's still, there's still a lot of 50%ers in there. Massive decreases in expert qualifications for aircraft and also ground, and RP multiplier increases. These are all incredibly positive, and it makes me very, very optimistic for the future of War Thunder when it comes to the top tier stuff. There is a lot of vehicles now that I have overlooked because of their prices that I'm definitely going to be grinding out now because of the fact that I think it's more justified to grind them out instead of just going for top tier MBTs. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank B. Young, Blackie, Dyslexic Child, Moxie, Olo Brolo, Martinez, and Super Cacti for supporting me on Patreon.